Hello and welcome to a new series I'm starting on my channel where we talk about the strong and the weak in regarding races, units, spells and abilities, and giving my unbiased opinion on what I think. If you want to suggest a change via that be a nerf or a buff, comment down below and in my next video I'll give an opinion on it. But other than that, let's get right into this. I can't think of a better place to start than Chaos Spawn. These guys are wank. Even though they look so cool and have amazing models and animations, it's just a shame that they are just completely lackluster when compared to other units. Even when they're compared to their other monstrous infantry counterparts such as Bestigors and animated Hulks, these guys just don't compare. When you compare them to even their cousins in Vermintide 2, they know how to be Chaos Spawn. Seriously, the Chaos Spawn in Vermintide you don't want to mess with. But why are these units so shit? Well, let's have a cheeky gander at their stats. They have anti-infantry, damage dealer, and are unbreakable, which are really good abilities, and do sort of fit like a berserker role. But the problem is, they have 10 armor, which means they are really susceptible to things like missile fire, and of course do lose to low cost anti-large infantry. To put this in perspective, I set up a battle between Chaos Spawn and Spearmen. When the Spearmen finally routed, the Chaos Spawn had lost half their models and were below half HP. Now you might be thinking, well, the Chaos Spawn won, what's the matter, they did their jobs, they beat the infantry. However, if you take note that Chaos Spawn cost 1000 gold and Spearmen only cost 300 gold, who's trading more cost efficient? And you see, that 700 gold difference means the Empire player came out on top in that fight. Now, what are Chaos Spawn? Disgusting creatures that have been corrupted by chaos and magic. So, I think they should be given two existing abilities. The first is Berserk. Chaos Spawn are mindless creatures that just want to kill and satisfy their sort of bloodthirst. So, of course, if they have Berserker, the longer they're in combat, the higher melee attack they get and the higher physical resistance they get. So basically, when they're in combat, they become these, beasts that just become unstoppable. Of course, they would have Rampage to balance this out, but I could see this really fitting with the Chaos Spawn's playstyle, and of course still making them very weak when they're out of combat. The second ability, which kind of ties in with the first, is Hunger. This is an ability that the Mongols have from the Vampire Coast, that when these units are in combat, they regen. This basically means that Chaos Spawn want to be in combat at all times, and if they're not getting any of their buffs. Now you might say, having both of these things together will make them far too overpowered, which I completely understand. But when you think about it, the Chaos Spawn are still susceptible to that missile fire, basically having that 10 armor, and will now have Rampage, which of course means that they can run into some Demigryph Knights for all I know, and get absolutely molested. Now, of course, I think the Rampage mechanic really fits with Chaos Spawn, because I just can't see a Chaos Lord giving commands to them and saying, yeah, go over there. It's more like, hey, there's humans over there, go eat them. Because, I mean to say, Chaos Spawn, do you really think they take commands? So that's my first way of fixing Chaos Spawn. Very simple and would not be hard to implement since these abilities already exist. My second way of fixing Chaos Spawn is changing their playstyle to be more of a support unit than a damage dealer. Hear me out. The Regiment of Renown Weird Spawn is useful because of that armor sundering ability, which allows units with less armor piercing damage to get damage on high value targets. So I want to change Chaos Spawn into a similar role. So, if we reduce the model count from 16 to 8, this then gives each Chaos Spawn more HP individually. We then also reduce the price from 1000 to about 650. We are then left with a cheap punching bag unit. Basically, most monstrous infantry are damage dealers, who you mix in with low tier infantry so that basically the infantry takes the damage and not your monstrous infantry. But what if we turn that around? I want Chaos Spawn to basically be the unit that soaks up damage with a lot of HP, since now they have less models, and deal less damage overall as well. You would then mix these Chaos Spawn with elite cavalry and infantry so that Chaos Spawn is a chaff unit and, basically takes the damage and not your elite infantry. This then would of course keep them separate to the Weird Spawn while still filling a support role. But I really do like this idea of having a monstrous infantry unit that is different to the Bestigors and Rat Ogres, which wants to take the damage so more high value units don't. Anyway, enough about them. Let's move over to Beastmen. One change I feel is really being overlooked is Bestigors with Halberds. Now, if any of you have ever played in multiplayer as Beastmen, you will know that your opponent may take a certain strategy against you, which is taking 2 large monster units, for example War Sphinxes, Vargolfs or Arachnarok Spiders, etc. And if you face this, you will know it's extremely hard to deal with it unless you prepare. Yes, you can bring Gorok's Man Rippers, and Minotaurs with great weapons, but that's it. They are your only anti-large armor piercing units. The problem is, you can only take 1 anti-large armor piercing infantry unit, which is the Gorok's Man Rippers, which can be shut down by a number of things like missiles. And for the Minotaurs, it's the exact same problem that all monstrous infantry units have had, which is basically where they can get stuck, they can get shot, and sometimes they can not even be hitting the right unit when you want them to. For example, if they're fighting a large entity and there's, infantry mixed in there, they can be hitting the infantry instead of the unit you actually want them to be hitting. Now, I don't know if it's lore friendly, but I think Bestigors with Halberd should be a unit you can take as normal, instead of being forced to take the Regiment of Renown unit. This would of course shift the balance for Beastmen, giving them not an advantage, but more of an even playing field when going up against the double Vargolf or double War Sphinx, whatever. It would force your opponent to think a little bit more about what they're doing instead of just bringing the same strategy against you, and hopefully will lead to more interesting games. Now, I'm not saying we should just, sod the Gorok's Man Rippers, okay? Fuck all Regiment of Renowns. I just think Bestigors with Halberds should become their own unit. Anyway, next up, we're moving on to the Dowie. Should gyrocopters have fire whilst moving and stalk? Now, in gyrocopter lore, it says that gyrocopters are more, scouting units, which is why I think these 2 abilities could fit really nicely in with their playstyles. The stalk ability could let out for more sneaky plays because, we never see gyrocopters or gyrobombers because they just get shot down so quickly. And the fire whilst moving ability would of course be really good, since gyrocopters are always being chased by some flying manticore or some other flying unit, and would allow them to do damage whilst on the move. Lastly, and this is sort of like our own little preference, I would love to see gyrocopters get Vanguard deployment. Since gyrocopters are more of a scouting unit, it would be only fitting that they could be placed behind enemy lines or to the sides to scout for cavalry and other units. Next up, the Phoenix King Tyrion. Now, you might be thinking, what's wrong with the High Elf duelist? Well, it's not that he's overpowered or underpowered, no. It's that the fact that the minor change I would like is for him to get flaming attacks. I mean, he's called the bloody Phoenix King, and he has a flaming sword, yet he just does regular attacks. I mean, okay, CA might not want him to one-shot lords that have weakness to fire, but it would just be a nice little cherry on top for his character and just finish him off in Total War Warhammer as the proper sort of Fire Lord, or I guess you could put it as. Moving back over to Chaos, another change that is really pissing me off that, yet is so simple that, CA won't do, is Chaos Dragons being their own unit. Now, I understand it might not be lore friendly, but Chaos Dragons should be their own unit too, as well as a mount choice, like Wood Elves and High Elves. Vampire counts, of course, do have dragons, but I mean, they already have Terrorgeists, so they don't really need them. But Chaos could really benefit from Chaos Dragons, since they could give them more air superiority and allow for some interesting strats. I mean, come on, CA, all you need to do is take the lore off the dragon and presto, you've got a unit. I mean, I'll pay £5 to add it to my, my army in Total War Warhammer. I know that's sad. But anyway, this new series is going to be a little ranting session where I can talk about things that I would love to see changed, and as I said at the start, any suggestion I will talk about as long as it's within reason. But for example, in other videos I'll be talking about how Footlords need a buff, or maybe even having bodyguards. I'll be talking about the Steam Tank, the Luminarchs, also talking about should DLC factions get reworks and more DLC, like, lore packs. I mean, there is so much I can talk about just by looking at the forums, and I want to share it here on my channel and give an opinion. Anyway, this video has been focused on the Chaos Spawn. I'm sure there's even better suggestions out there, but other than that, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.